So the community has been going on and on about how the War Within is really an alliance-based expansion and Horde are just the token characters that are kinda going on for the ride. Outside of the three main characters, it's pretty obvious Alleria and Anduin are way more important than Thrall. We are discovering a human kingdom as well as these new dwarves, and so far no really relevant Horde storyline is happening in this expansion, and we're already getting into the beta and we know pretty much everything that will happen in 11.0. Is the outrage really justified? Because according to the new interviews, it is likely a new wrathgate event will be happening that might trigger a new faction conflict as soon as the end of this expansion that will make the Horde and the Alliance a lot more relevant than they are now. So what is really going on? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get anything Warcraft related, gift cards and software, and all below market prices. Best of all, if you add my code DORON, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. Right out the bat, we never really had a strict Horde or Alliance expansions. I mean, some were more biased than others. For example, obviously, Warlords of Draenor was mainly an Orc expansion, although it included the Draenei, and you could see Wrath as tying up the loose ends of Lordaeron, so being more human-based, as it is essentially the continuation of the human campaign from Warcraft 3. However, despite the teams, I mean, the factions actually kind of mattered for the most part. It's always like we had two teams, and our team went to the expedition with their own cast of important characters that were important to the overall storyline. For example, despite dealing with Artis in Northrend, we had significant Horde presence, with Garrosh being one of the main characters, as well as Sourfang. In Mists of Pandaria, this was a perfect split of 50-50 as we all went into an unknown land, so either the Horde or the Alliance was too familiar or had a whole spotlight on them. Then, of course, it all escalated in BFA, which was literally the faction conflict expansion, but let's be real, a pretty common theme has been going on for quite a while, of the Horde being the bad guys and doing the terrible things, and the Alliance always on the defense, more noble and almost always winning, but somehow always getting the short end of the stick regardless. Now, all that is about to change, and I'm going to get into that in a bit with some of the new interviews and the alpha information, but the main problem really is in regard to the past few expansions. Let's be real. Dragonflight was really not about anything specific. Expansion-wise, like gameplay-wise, it might have been good, but overall, story-wise, it didn't hit the mark whatsoever. Like, if you look at the perspective of the World Soul Saga, Dragonflight was literally just a breeder expansion, a filler one, so something could happen in between Shadowlands and the World Soul Saga. I mean, they literally told us that in a recent interview. This is not my opinion. They told us how they planned the entire thing as a cooldown period so that they could prepare for the World Soul Saga. So really, none of the faction characters were important. It was really all about the dragons and the primals, and even this storyline didn't really lead anywhere. However, the War Within is quite different, and I'm saying this now that the beta is starting, so we have pretty much the entire 11.0 storyline leaked, and we know almost everything that is going to be happening until 11.1, despite the fact that we're going to a random new continent close to Kalimdor that has nothing to do with any of the factions. Story-wise, this expansion is very heavily Alliance biased, at least based on the current information. We are dealing with these new Arati humans that is just human heritage and history. We've got the Earthen that are technically now a Horde race, but let's be real, I mean, these are just overgrown dwarves that have traditionally been an Alliance team. Even more importantly, we got a few main characters, and it's really all Alliance biased. On the artwork, we got Anduin, Alleria, and Thrall. Based on the current information that was revealed, Thrall is literally just a sidekick character. He's here to talk with the elements, help a little bit, but it's so obvious that Alleria and Anduin are like 3 times more important to what is going on. Anduin is all about reconnecting with the light, learning what it is. He's like the connection with these new Arati humans, and he knows things we don't. Alleria is arguably even more important. I mean, Zealotad, the lead antagonist, is after her. There is this rivalry. She might just be the most important character that is going to lead to the Void Invasion Midnight. So far, Thrall has only been in the cinematic, asking Anduin to help him figure things out, and he hasn't really done much at all in the expansion itself. The only other main characters they have added to the short stories is Gazlo, the goblin, who is going to play a role, and we will likely get a goblin patch as 11.1 or 11.2, but none of that is of course confirmed. However, other than this, even the Horde main characters are not that important. I mean, on the Alliance side, Relian has appeared, Jaina, and a few others, and some Horde characters are here obviously, but as people are complaining, they really seem to be more like side sidekicks just to sort of respect the tradition and have some of the faction characters, but they're not really doing anything of actual relevance. I mean, think of it like Bane. I mean, technically one of the lead characters in the Shadowlands, but just sitting around and twiddling his thumbs. So is there really some truth to it that the War Within is an alliance-based expansion, and is it right for the Horde players to feel disconnected and just like they're being brought along for the ride? So based on the data and information, I would say yes, but if you guys have been following the interviews and the news, I think there is another dimension you need to consider, as it isn't really so black and white. First and the most important thing is that this World Soul Saga thing that Blizzard is doing is unlike anything they had ever done before. They have been talking about it for years and they're actually doing it now. This is shunning the one-off big bad villain expansion teams and instead making like one mega expansion, which is the trilogy, while the individual expansions are really more like glorified patches that are like kind of seamlessly transitioning one into the other. I think if you view it from this perspective, it definitely changes things. Based on information, Midnight is going to be heavily elven-based expansion, which is obviously Horde. It'll very likely also include the entire part of that continent, so we're looking at the Forsaken, the Trolls, as well as the humans that are living there. So Midnight is going to be more balanced expansion. It'll be like 50-50 Horde and the Alliance, and for the last item, I mean, it is way too early to really predict anything with any sort of accuracy. The other thing is the foreshadowing and kind of dropping the traditional faction roles, as well as the fact that we're going to get faction conflict once again. First of all, and for the most part, if you've been following the Warcraft storyline since Classic, it's pretty obvious the Horde were pretty much always doing most of the crimes. They always had most of the crazies, and thus far we had 2 Horde civil wars, and Orgrimmar was invaded twice, while Alliance has been stable and never really had much going on with them. For the most part, the Alliance was on the defense and wasn't really trying to conquer the world with some crazy dictator. Now, I'm not doubling down on the Tyrellian Batrope as like he's the new Garrosh, but it does seem like they're slowly setting up some discord within the Alliance itself. We got this new Arathi Empire that considers itself the original Arathi Empire, and they're led by a really powerful emperor from the other side of Azeroth who may want to return back to the Eastern Kingdoms, their original lands, and they might not like the Vorgen or the Forsaken living there. This could lead to the humans fighting humans and civil wars happening. It would also be really interesting to see how Tyrellian would position himself here, and whether he would side with the Stormwind Alliance or the Light Emperor, as really he's tied to both. I mean, arguably seeing that Tyrellian is a former Lordaeron citizen, he's more closely tied to the Arathi than he is to the Vryn bloodline and Stormwind. So, speculation aside, I think there is potential that the Alliance may be taking the crazy mantle soon, and the Horde might have to be on the intervening side this time. The other and the most important big thing is the recent interview that has gone completely under the radar. So, if you have been following the Alpha and the recent expansions, it appears as if there is no point in even having the Alliance or the Horde anymore. It is just one big combined faction, and really feels like they're going to be dissolving the factions any day now. This is the main driving force behind the Horde being more of a sidekick and not really having an identity in this expansion. However, in a recent interview, Blizzard literally said that some big event will be happening in this expansion and that the Horde and the Alliance are going to go back at it once again. To quote him, the factions always unite, but they always fall apart. Apparently, individuals will stay friendly, but not the factions, which essentially means that this is just justification for the cross-realm stuff to work, despite the new faction war that is going to be coming. They also hinted that they don't want to spoil it, but something should be happening in the War Within that will cause this new faction war. Almost certainly, this isn't going to be a new BFA, but very likely we're going to get something akin to Wrath of the Lich King, kind of like working together, but not really. A lot of tensions between the factions, but also fighting a common threat. Potentially, we will get a new wrathgate type event that will create this new faction conflict. So, if a conflict comes up, this Alliance-centric storyline for one part of the expansion won't really be relevant because the Horde and Alliance will get meaning again. Now, personally, I think this would be a great way to go forward. I definitely think we're past the BFA type, like global faction wars, but some tension and working together would really be good for the game. I feel like the factions should get meaning again, and you being Horde and Alliance should actually start meaning something, so that you're not just chilling and following Anduin, and Anduin is leading you as an orc character, but instead you would be following Thrall and your side of the important characters that would all be related and important to the relevant expansion. Thank you for watching. Check out my video on the Dreadlords returning by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on the Cult of Mithras and Roman mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!